Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Welcome, I'm Barbara Carafocas, and I'm excited to introduce Jude Holland, who is a women's abuse recovery coach and therapist. So welcome, Jude.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Thank you, Barbara.
Jude, you've had a remarkable career spanning 25 years in therapy, coaching, and education, with a personal experience of overcoming an abusive relationship. Could you share your journey and what inspired you to create the Revive, Reform, Reclaim program?
Yes, of course. My story, if you like, I lost my mum 13 years ago now. And when my mum died, I was not in a good place at all. I stopped being a therapist for a period of time. I found out 2 days after my mum died that my long-term partner was also in contact with someone else and actually threw him out. And from that, to cope with my emotions, I was using self-defeating behaviours. So I was kind of drinking too much at that point, which kind of brought me towards a dating site where I met my abuser, who I was in a relationship with for the next 6 years.
Yes. Oh dear. So could you walk us through your structured 8 steps to emotional resilience in your program?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So the 8-week program ultimately is about rebuilding you after you've left that relationship. So being in a relationship with an abuser affects your self-esteem, affects your confidence. And ultimately, the 8 weeks are about helping you to recover and put things into place. So looking at, rebuilding your confidence, looking at what you want your future to look like, having that compassionate voice for you so that you're dispelling those kind of negative thoughts that you have in your mind. So basically rebuilding the parts that have been taken away from you in that relationship. So rebuilding your self-esteem, looking at finding direction in your life again, from a professional perspective. That may also affect your relationships at work. And also your, the way that you are working. So it's about rebuilding you and giving you the skills to enable you to do that in the future.
Okay, and do these steps help career-driven women shed the weight of their insecurities and build confident, balanced and fulfilled lives?
That's right. What we are looking to do is to rebuild those lives so that we feel that we have the life that we deserve, that we feel confident again. And, we have, we can cross those challenges that we meet, both within our professional life, and feel confident again to maybe go for that promotion that maybe you felt you couldn't go for, or you were, in that relationship, you felt like you were being stopped to go for. And obviously coming out of an abusive relationship, whether that be with male or female, though I predominantly work with women, that affects your relationship with people as a whole. So therefore, the people around you at work don't necessarily know what is going on for you at that time. That sense of shame that stops you from speaking out also then stops you from progressing in your working life.
Yes, understandably. Are there any other common challenges that these women face when trying to move on past their trauma?
There are lots of different challenges. I think, people kind of believe to some degree that when you leave that everything's okay. And at that point, for me, there was a sense of relief. And for me, it was about rebuilding and having the security of a home and having financial security. But ultimately, that takes time to do. And the challenge is then when we kind of think everything's now going to be okay. Well, in actual fact, you may not feel safe in your home. You may not feel safe when you go out on the street, because there's that sense of hypervigilance when you go out on the street, you know, thinking that you may see your abuser in the street. You may have flashbacks, you may have nightmares. And there's a sense of being prepared for the fact that that may happen, and that actually that may be a normal reaction to the trauma that you've experienced in that relationship.
Okay. So your program emphasizes discovering absolute clarity and deepening self-understanding and igniting informed decision-making. Why are these elements crucial for emotional resilience and personal transformation?
I feel coming out of an abusive relationship, it's so important because your self-esteem has been eroded, and those kind of negative thoughts kind of affect everything in your life. So you've come out of that relationship, but it's about retraining yourself that you are lovable, that someone else will love you, that you can develop. So it's retraining yourself that those negative thoughts that were ingrained in you in that relationship actually aren't true. So it's about having that compassionate voice towards yourself in your head. You know, if you think about how we speak to a child, when we think about that voice and that tone of voice that we have in our head, we wouldn't speak to a child in that way. So therefore, why is it okay for us to speak to ourselves in that way? So it's starting from the negative thoughts and rebuilding that self-esteem, rebuilding that confidence. And that may be, you know, through using positive affirmations every day. So we're reinforcing that positive. It may be that we're using some kind of hypnotic script where, again, we're breaking down those negative thoughts and negative beliefs to enable us to feel more confident in our lives, and also thinking about the patterns in relationships, so that when we move forward, we can recognize some of the things that happened in that relationship. Generally, you know, that abuse pattern, you know, we have a sense of something happens. So there's a, you know, the tension builds in the relationship. Then we have an incident that is likely to happen, which could be an argument. Then we have that reconciliation within the argument, which, you know, we could class as love bombing. And then we have a sense of calm, and then that starts all over again. So there's something about being able to recognize those red flags in a relationship and be able to rebuild ourselves and our self-esteem. So going into new relationships, we also look at our value base and what it is that we want to achieve from that relationship, so we can recognize in our partner some of the things, you know, that previously weren't okay. And one of the things for me, if I think about a yellow flag rather than maybe a red flag, was I moved in with my partner quite quickly. So within 6 months of knowing him, I moved in and actually left my home, which was rented accommodation. So at the time, the relationship was really good. So no red flags, no issues. But ultimately, as the relationship progressed, I was then already in a place where I was vulnerable. Within my relationship, there was also financial abuse. And for most victims, the beginning of abuse can start with financial abuse. So it's being able to recognize all of those things, rebuild your self-esteem, and then those patterns don't reoccur in following relationships that you can then have.
Yes. So a lot of self-love. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So for our listeners who might be struggling with insecurities or past trauma, what initial steps or advice would you offer them to start their journey towards the emotional resilience and reclaiming their lives?
I think for lots of people in an abusive relationship, you don't have a voice. You know, your voice is taken away and we become very submissive. And one of the areas that I cover in the course is around assertiveness and building boundaries, and that it is okay for you to say no. So, you know, it's so important that we kind of look at those steps within the relationship.
Yeah. Well, in closing, where can our listeners get in touch with you, Jude?
Okay, so I'm available on my website, so www.judeholland.coach. And, from coming here and speaking with yourself today, Barbara, I would like to offer that, if any of your listeners are in a place at the moment where they recognise some of the things that we've spoke about today, that they're in a place where they would like to leave, or they have been thinking about that for a period of time, then, it is about thinking about that leaving can be the most dangerous time. So reaching out to people that are around you, whether it be a friend, whether it be your next door neighbour, and starting to create a plan of that independence for yourself. So that might be that you might already have a bag packed with all your important documents in there, that you've created a bank account for yourself, that you've created a credit card for yourself. So you're starting to build that independence before you think about leaving. And for your listeners out here, anyone who kind of wants to speak to me, I would like to offer for them 5 discovery calls. So anyone who kind of contacts me, they can have a discovery call with me, and I will go through as much as I can help them at that time.
That's very kind of you, Jude. Thank you for sharing your incredible insights and inspiring journey with us, and empowering so many women to reclaim their lives with confidence and resilience. It's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest. Thank you again for your time and for being such a lovely guest on my show.
Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.